I know the feeling. You scroll through a sea of glossy product photos, every card looks like a sleek piece of future tech, but when you finally install it, the performance feels underwhelming. It's the same story that makes a lot of us pause at the checkout, wondering if we'll end up with another expensive, nice-to-look-at component that barely moves the needle. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So let's break down the MSI GeForce RTX 4090 SUPRIM Liquid X and see whether it actually lives up to the hype, or if it's another pretty face in the crowd. First off, this isn't just any RTX 4090. MSI has taken NVIDIA's Ada Lovelace chip and wrapped it in a custom liquid cooling block that's meant to keep temperatures down while the GPU is cranked to its max boost. In real-world terms, that means you can push the 2625 MHz boost clock for extended gaming sessions without the card screaming for air like a high-performance air-cooled model would. I've seen people on forums brag about hitting 30 frames per second in Cyberpunk 2077 at native 4K with ray tracing on, DLSS set to quality, and the card staying comfortably under 70°C. That's a concrete example of the cooling advantage. The liquid loop spreads heat more evenly, so the GPU can stay in its sweet spot longer. Now, who actually benefits from that kind of thermal headroom? If you're the kind of gamer who already has a 1440p 144Hz monitor, you might not see the full value. The SUPRIM Liquid X shines when you have a 4K or even an 8K HDR display and you want to max out ray tracing, or when you're doing heavy GPU-accelerated workloads like 4K video editing in Premiere Pro, rendering complex scenes in Blender, or training AI models locally. In those scenarios, the extra bandwidth of the 384-bit memory interface and the 24 GB of GDDR6X really become noticeable. The card's ability to sustain high clock speeds without throttling translates into faster render times and smoother frame rates when the scene is saturated with reflections, shadows, and particle effects. On the flip side, the card isn't a universal upgrade. If you're building a mid-range PC with a 1080p or 1440p screen, a lower-tier RTX 40 series or even a high-end RTX 3080 can give you almost identical performance in most titles, while costing a fraction of the price and using far less power. The SUPRIM Liquid X draws well over 450 watts at full load, which means you'll need a 1000 WPSU with quality rails just to be safe. That's an added expense you have to budget for, and it also puts more strain on your case's airflow. The card itself measures about 5.5 inches in thickness and occupies 3 slots, so a compact mid-tower might not accommodate it without sacrificing other components or compromising cable management. One practical strength that often gets overlooked is the noise profile. Traditional air-cooled high-end GPUs can become a low-frequency hum under load, especially if the fans are set to a more aggressive curve. The liquid cooling solution on the SUPRIM keeps the fans spinning slower for the same heat removal, which means you get a quieter room when you're streaming or recording gameplay. For content creators who need a clean audio environment, that reduction in fan noise can be a real productivity boost. But there's a trade-off in the form of maintenance. Unlike a sealed air cooler, a liquid-cooled block can, over years of operation, accumulate dust on the radiator fins or experience a minor loss of coolant efficiency. MSI's design is a closed loop, so you don't have to refill it, but you still need to keep the radiator clean and ensure that the case fans are moving enough air through it. If you're not comfortable checking a radiator every few months, you might find the extra upkeep a nuisance. Another practical consideration is the power delivery on the board. MSI's custom PCB uses a robust VRM layout that helps maintain stable voltage during those long gaming marathons, which is essential if you're pairing the card with a high-end CPU like the Intel i9-13900K or AMD Ryzen 9 7950X. In practice, that means you won't see sudden dips in frame rate when the GPU is pushing past the 2500 MHz mark. However, the power connectors are 3 8-pin PCIe plugs, and some power supplies only come with 2. You'll either need an adapter or a PSU that already includes the third connector, which can add to the initial setup cost. The rating on Amazon sits at 4.4 out of 5 from just under 200 reviewers. While we don't have specific snippets, a score in that range typically reflects a product that delivers on its promises but has a few pain points, most likely the size, power draw, and price premium. It's a good sign that the majority of owners are satisfied, but the outliers probably point to the same practical concerns we've been talking about. So, should you buy the MSI GeForce RTX 4090 SUPRIM Liquid X? If you have,